All right, on this episode of MMA Canada Radio, very excited to be talking to an individual set to compete at Samourai MMA 9, which transpires on February the 2nd and goes down in Montreal. We have Antoine Chaput stepping into the cage to take on Kevin Popowick Bastien, and great having Kevin on MMA Canada Radio. How's your day going so far, man?
I'm doing pretty good. How are you?
I'm doing well. Appreciate you asking, and it seems like you had quite a busy weekend. Like, what all were you getting up to throughout this busy weekend on the heels of Unified MMA 55 and UFC 297? It seems like you were like really involved with a lot of teammates and all.
Yeah, I mean, on Friday, Unified, we had my best friend Zach Powell fight, and, like helping him cut weight and helping him just get ready in general, being there for the shakeout and everything. It makes for couple long days and everything, especially with having the UFC the day after as well. So there's a lot of teammates out. So it's nice to have that much support, though, with the team that we have.
Yeah, and how long have you been with NTT for? It seems like you've been there for a good bit now. Like, it seemed like, maybe you were at TriStar Gatineau before. I mean, per sure dog, at least. Like, how long have you been working with Niagara Top Team and been involved in that collective and all?
It feels like about 40 years that I've been working with them, but
yeah.
I think maybe we're getting up on 4 years now.
No, I love hearing that, man. It's just, I feel like the team has grown so much. Like, I feel like it was one of those, like, almost like well-kept secrets kind of early on at one point. Like, it's like the people that knew, but I feel like the broader MMA landscape just becomes more aware of NTT, seemingly with like each passing event and performance that each member from the team generates. So that must be exciting to be part of that as you're also growing individually there.
Yeah, it's not a secret anymore.
Yeah, no, it's very much put out there now. It's one of those things where it's like, if you don't know, you're kind of lacking. You got to be doing some studying here a bit.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, this team, it's pretty sick to have, like, me, Zach moved out from Quebec out here. We got a few guys that moved out. Another one of my teammates that's fighting on Samurai, Keenan Keller, he's moved from BC out here. We have a few other guys that have moved from pretty much everywhere from Ontario out here. So it's pretty cool to have, again, like, a big team of like-minded people that are here to support each other.
Yeah, for sure. It must be, such a great fit and everything like that for where you're at. And it's cool that you're competing under the Samurai banner again and everything. It seems like you've got to compete for some good circuits in Ontario and, Quebec and all. Like, how does it feel to be competing under the Samurai banner? Because you obviously got that impressive rear naked choke victory at Samourai MMA 6 in May of last year.
Yeah, I mean, a fight's a fight. I don't really give a shit who I'm fighting for. I'm just here to fight. So as long as I can get an opponent and I can get a win, I don't really care.
Yeah, good attitude to have, man. Definitely something to keep you open to different opportunities. But that last one, at least like the last one under the Samurai banner, seemed like a cool one. Just getting like that first pro win in your hometown. Like, it seemed like a big moment. I mean, obviously you're looking towards the next step and very squarely focused on this next fight, but that must have been a cool moment all the same.
Yeah, absolutely. Like, yes, being in the hometown is cool, but the other thing was, like, in front of 4,000 people, that's not a small accomplishment, even for the promotion itself and for me being able to, like, go out and fight. Like, I hadn't fought in Quebec in my pro career at all. And just, like, the little differences in, like, the commission, and I've never, like, fought in an arena like that before, so, like, you're waiting in the tunnel for a really long time. Like, just as far as, like, scheduling, it's pretty different, and it's cool to, like, have those different experiences before, like, first time you fight for a big fight in the UFC or whatever, and they, like, call your name 40 minutes before your fight, and you end up, like, either blowing your lung out too soon or there's something weird that happens, right? So logistically, I think that it's good for my career.
Yeah, I was going to say that was going to be my question. Like, does it feel like something that really is, like, gearing you up towards that next level you're striving for, down the line? Because it seems like some of the machinations you were kind of outlining there, getting you a little more familiar with some of the processes that would be the case at some of these bigger shows and all.
Yeah, absolutely. And just, like, going with the flow, like, if something goes wrong, like, it's whatever, it doesn't really matter. we're fighting all in the same cage anyways, so like wherever we are in the world, we're not fighting, as the great Chael Sonnen would say, we're not fighting in Brazil, we're not fighting in Las Vegas, we're fighting in the octagon. That's what it is.
Yeah, for sure. And I mean, certain level of connectivity to that UFC 297 event. We were just kind of talking a bit about that, just like all the different activity from your teammates throughout and stuff like that. Did you end up like were you at the event? Were you at the Toronto card there checking things out or anything like that?
No, I don't have a mortgage payment to put down on tickets, so I just watched it at home.
Yeah, man, that was kind of a common thing. I mean, even a lot of my buddies who are really into MMA, that seemed to be like a common sentiment. Like, there was even one of my buddies who was like looking at like, you know, tickets the day of to see if he could get things at a reasonable price, but still no go on that. So I hear you.
Yeah. So, but it was cool. We still had friends come over and everything. We actually watched the fights at Jazz's house. So she wasn't there, of course. So,
yeah. What were your thoughts on her performance? I mean, a historic difference in terms of the strikes and just, I mean, a rare 10-7 dealt out. I mean, probably the most exemplary performance one could have hoped to have. That must have been cool to kind of check that out at her place and all.
Yeah, you know, I think she could have done better, you know, but no kidding. Literally flawless performance. Like, I'm joking with she could have done better. There's literally nothing you could have. You're sitting in mount for 2 full rounds, pounding on your opponent, and like then you stand back up, or after the first round, you stand back up in the second, and she ends up dropping Priscilla. Like, that's the only chance she had was on the feet, and then Jazz was letting her know that she's even better there. So great performance, very happy.
Yeah, and another question I kind of wanted to get your insights on too, because I mean, just again, shows the gamesmanship that we were kind of talking about before, the readiness to fight wherever, whenever. Like, just the fact you made your pro debut fighting Serhiy Sidey, who had quite the performance on the card as well. Like, what were your thoughts on his rematch with Ramon Tavares there?
So, I train with Serhiy now at NTT. Like, he goes to Aegis, and basically Aegis, NTT, House of Champions, BTC, we're all like one team that all train together. And I fought Serhiy in my first pro fight, and it didn't go great, but it's nice to have like him, Mikey, have Jazz, have a bunch of people, the AJ, that are all in like high level organizations that we can have those role models to like either look up to or try to emulate and try to add, like, see what they do, see how it's different than what we're doing right now, and see if we're on the path, right? So I would like to say that Serhiy got fucked and he should have won that decision, but still. And he also got fucked. He should have won the fight of the night too, because he should have made $100,000. That guy didn't make weight. Dana should have given him $100,000.
Yeah, I was kind of taken aback that didn't get fight of the night also. But I mean, to your point about some of the different, I guess, like, people in Southern Ontario, I mean, I feel like there's just such a wealth of talent out here, and there's such a great kind of like cross-training culture. Like, I mean, I feel like there are people who are like, I guess, predominantly out of certain spaces, but it's not uncommon for someone who's, I guess, mostly with Aegis, say, to go to like NTT or, you know, the Burlington Training Center or something like that. Like, it just seems like everyone's interested in kind of honing the skills wherever the location is, but all.
Yeah, absolutely. Like, every Monday, like, for this camp, Serhiy was doing privates with our head coach here, Chris Prickett, for wrestling. And then, you know, he does his, like, pad work with Lyndon, and then at Aegis, and then his jiu-jitsu coach is Paul Jalbert from BTC. So, like, he's a prime example of, like, a guy that's literally in on the team. It's not a gym, it's a team, you know?
I was going to say, is that something you noticed? I mean, I'm talking more like the NTT kind of space, but, I mean, that just distinction you drew there, like, just the more communal, kind of like tight-knit vibes. Was that something you also felt at NTT, like the strong communal support kind of vibes, while also getting in that high-level refinement of your skills and everything?
Yeah, when I first came out here, it was really funny because, like, we had a strong team, like, with Evolution and the gym that we were at before, but it was pretty small. Like, we're maybe 4 guys, here at NTT, it's like we're, I don't know, like 30 pros or something like that. And the guys will fight and they'll disagree and everything, but it never feels like it never feels like there's ego involved. Like guys are fighting and guys are like yelling at each other in the gym sometimes and stuff, but it's like brothers and sisters fighting. Like, you know, they're going to make up afterwards. It's kind of cool.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, good balance kind of take. Like, obviously going to be ups and downs, but consistently there for each other. So, yeah, I love to hear that, man. But I guess in getting some specifics on this upcoming opponent here, Antoine Chaput, I'm kind of curious because I know some fighters are kind of into the whole idea of delving into, like, a certain level of tape study with their opponents, almost to the point of, like, seeing if they can find, like, everything they can on the guy, whereas some are kind of like, I kind of want to have a certain level of an idea of what this guy's skills are, but more focusing on my own individual efforts so I can be in, like, more of a flow state in the fight. Like, where are you at in that kind of sense?
I mean, it's kind of hard at this level because guys change so much from fight to fight. But yeah, I've seen two of his pro fights, and kind of watched him maybe twice. I watched him with my coaches. Mainly, I'll send it to my coaches, and they come up with a game plan, and then I just do what they say. I don't. I've never accepted a fight in my career. It was always, I send it to my coaches. I send the matchup to my coaches, or now it's my manager that sends the matchup to my coaches. If they like it, they say yes, and then they say, hey, you're fighting this guy on this date. And that's the way it's worked so far, and I mean, we've had pretty freaking good results, so yeah, can't complain.
Yeah, absolutely. I guess I was just wondering, because, I mean, you talked about seeing a couple of his pro fights. I guess I'm presuming those were his couple samurai fights he had at their 5th and 7th events, respectively.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, that'll be an interesting fight. It seems like people are talking about it in terms of, like, just a couple, known prospects on the scene getting ready to kind of throw down. But, I mean, yeah, that is interesting. Like you said, it is kind of difficult to, I don't know, really, like, ardently game plan at this level, because it seems like fight to fight, there's so much growth with where you guys are at in your career right now and stuff like that. So yeah, just interesting. Is that like an exciting thing to feel on your individual level and everything like that? Just like understanding how much marked growth is taking place between the fights. Is that something you notice in your own anecdotal journey and all?
Yeah, absolutely. Like, I mean, especially, I can distinctly remember like my first fight with NTT, how my wrestling was, and then my second, third fight with NTT, how my wrestling was, and it was like I showed up to NTT and I felt like I knew nothing because I couldn't stop a takedown, and then I was worried about stopping the takedown, and then all these guys that I thought couldn't strike were lighting me up on the feet just because, again, I couldn't stop a freaking takedown. So now I feel like I'm kind of putting things together, and I'm in the last, I don't know, 3 fights, I've had pretty good offensive wrestling, not just like defensive wrestling. So I think I'm turning into a little bit more of a leech kind of guy instead of a stand-up guy now.
I was gonna say, obviously, you credit like a lot of like your sparring partners and your own individual dedication to the growth in your wrestling, but like how much of an X factor is Chris Prickett? Because he seems like such a brilliant wrestling mind, and especially for like bringing wrestling into like an MMA context and all.
Yeah, Chris Prickett and Javon Ballform. Another one that's helped me a lot with just like one being a training partner and helping me out was Luke Roberts. He I don't know, first month I came out to NTT, he was like beating the piss out of me with like wrestling and just like throwing me and showing me all this stuff. And he's a black belt in jiu-jitsu as well, so it's always like a good look to like one, work my defense, and two, like if I can do something with Luke, I know I can do that with pretty much anybody in the world, right? So
yeah, I was gonna say that must embolden a lot of confidence. That seems like a big thing with NTT. Like it seems like they get in such incredible, grinding kind of work and just growing in their technique, whereby the fights almost seem easy in comparison. Like, I mean, not easy, but you know what I mean. Like, it's like the magnitude of effort put into the gym. It's like all of a sudden, once it's fight time, it's like, okay, cool, it's time to like do the fun part of this, quote unquote. Is that kind of, how you see it in your experiences too? Just like in terms of the intensity within the training room and all?
Yeah, sometimes these practices are freaking ridiculous. Like we had Javon ran sparring on Thursday because all the coaches were there for the UFC and for Zach and everybody. And I don't know, Javon just likes to torture us, so he made us do like 8 or 9 extra rounds of Shark Tanks after sparring. So like, it's funny because like he's a pure wrestler guy, but like he knows how the MMA game is. But he likes to just like watch us scrap it out and see what's up, right? So
Yeah.
it's cool to have run practices and like see like every once in a while it's just a gut check, right? Like maybe not once a week, maybe once every 2 weeks. It's all right. See if you got it. See if you got like the warrior spirit, the eye of the tiger, you know?
Yeah, I get what you're saying, and from what I was seeing from some other interviews I've checked out of yours, I think you were mentioning your dad had like a pretty pronounced career shift at one point. Like he was a chef rather for around 10 or 15 years and then became a mechanic. Like I wonder how much of, that kind of thing was instilled in you in a certain sense, because I mean it seems like it's translated into the work ethic. And I was in that same interview seeing that your mom worked 3 jobs, but I guess in terms of like your dad's adaptability, and I mean your mom's adaptability too, like how much of like what they've imparted to you lends itself to your growth as an MMA fighter? Because like you were talking about your growth within the wrestling, I guess to me hearing that it seems like maybe it's informed a bit by that.
Oh yeah, definitely. Like seeing my dad and my mom like work super hard, it makes me want to be able to make enough money to not work super hard, because it seems like that fucking sucks, right?
Yeah.
It would be nice to just make a shitload of money and then sit on my ass for the rest of my life. That'd be nice.
I was gonna say, what's the temperament from your parents with your fighting? I know some people are like, I don't really want to see my kid fighting. It kind of just inherently makes me nervous. And some are like, it's not really my thing, but really support them. I mean, I guess there's a continuum as well where some people are like super, for it and very fervent about it. Like, what's your what's the parents' temperament rather with like your fighting pursuits and all?
So I could go on for like 10 minutes of how like they're super supportive and all this stuff, but just to like put into picture, for this fight in Montreal, it's like an 8-hour drive from Niagara. I sold 2 tickets for this fight, one for my mom and one for my dad. That's it.
So are they doing like the whole get the hotel, like make a bit of a weekend of it kind of thing? Is that kind of the plan?
Yeah.
No, it's awesome, man. That must make you feel good and everything like that. Just like knowing that they're on board like that and they're going to be there at the fight. Or, I guess some people maybe feel a certain level of pressure from that almost. Like, are you a person who's like, oh, that's awesome? Or are you maybe like looking at it like, oh, I got to kind of show out a little bit? Because I know some people kind of have that even with like the home crowd dynamics and things like that too in certain situations.
I used to not let my mom, like for my amateur kickboxing fights, I used to not let my mom be there. And then I started realizing that it doesn't really matter. Again, like I said earlier, right? We're not fighting in Montreal. We're not fighting in my hometown, Gatineau. We're not fighting in Niagara. We're fighting in the cage. We're fighting in a ring. It doesn't matter where it is, as long as the ring is, I don't know, whatever feet by whatever feet. That's where the fight takes place. It doesn't take place in the city. I don't really care about that, right? I don't really care who's there. It's whoever needs to be there is the ref, my opponent, and me, and the rest. It could be in an empty room, and then we could never talk about it again. I don't really give a shit.
Yeah, for sure. Is that something that really just helps your competitive focus? Because, ultimately, when you're... the way you're looking at your fight career, it's like you could presumably be fighting in a myriad of locations, different countries even, etc. Like, is this like a mentality that I guess you've just curated kind of over time in your own fight experience? It seems like it's very mindful of like a long-term kind of focus in your career, just maybe kind of being a road warrior certain times and just being like, well, whatever. I'm stepping into a cage and putting on the 4-ounce gloves, so same.
Yeah, like, it's not like we're making like crazy amounts of money like at this level, right? So like I get a free trip to Montreal, like I get a free hotel and I get to visit the city the next day. Like same thing as we had the UFC in Toronto. Yeah, it's close and stuff, and that's cool. But like, also I hadn't been to Toronto in so long. I'd never been to the Eden Center. So like, all this kind of like traveling stuff for either helping guys that are on the team or fighting myself. Excuse me. I think that's a big part of the sport and like a big perk that we get to have.
Yeah, it's a good way to look at it for sure, man. And definitely excited for this card overall, but this fight definitely stood out to me when I was seeing the different bout announcements roll out. So to that point, thank you so much for making the time to come on the show and chat a little bit, man. But I'm curious if maybe you have any final parting thought to add as we're sort of wrapping things up here, Kevin.
No. If you want to sponsor me, throw me some cash. That's it.
You got to be checking out Kevin Popowick Bastien if you haven't seen him already. Very exciting fighting style, and I think that'll come through in this Antoine Chaput fight. And very excited for Samourai MMA 9 overall. Should be a great event in Montreal on February 2nd. But to reiterate, Kevin, wanted to thank you for coming on MMA Canada Radio. Some great insights had throughout. Been wanting to talk to you for a little bit, so cool we could make this work out. But, looking forward to seeing this fight when it goes down. But until then, you enjoy the rest of your weekend, man, and thank you.
Thanks, man. You too.